Hey Mustangs, in this video we're going to look at a quick introduction to eukaryote cell organelles. Now we're going to start with animal cells because just about everything that animal cell has, plant cell has. Okay. Now what we're going to want to do with these organelles, there's three things that you're going to need to know by the time we're done with organelles. The first thing is you should be able to identify each organelle by its shape and form. So if I gave you a picture of a cell, you should be able to identify all the organelles within the cell. Just by how they look. You should know the functions of each organelle, and you should know what each organelle is made out of, so which macromolecules make each organelle. So those three things are what you're going to need to know about organelles by the time we're done with them. Alright, so we're starting with the animal cell. So you got this image in class. So we're going to look at the shape and structure of each of these and identify what organelle is what. So looking at this picture here, one thing we have to remember is that a cell is three-dimensional. We usually draw it as two-dimensional, and it's usually drawn as a circle and stuff like that, but a cell is actually a sphere shape. It's not a flat circle, it's a sphere. Okay, so in this picture here, we're looking at a cell, a sphere-shaped cell that's been cut in half. And so many organelles are cut open as well. And then in the nucleus is a sphere shape as well, but we've cut a wedge out so we could see the inside of the nucleus. So let's go ahead and go through and name and label each of these. So as it comes up here, you're going to label them on your paper. So the first one, the one that looks kind of like a little golf ball here, is the nucleus. And you can see the nuclear pores on the outside here for things to enter and exit the nucleus. Coming off of the nucleus, these folds that you see here, this whole thing is known as the endoplasmic reticulum, but it's divided into two parts, the smooth and the rough ER. And we often abbreviate it as ER instead of having to say endoplasmic reticulum every single time. So on this side, the side that has the little purple dots here, this is known as the rough ER. Now, the reason scientists named it the rough ER was because the first time they saw it underneath a microscope, it actually looked rough because of these circles that are on it, these little bumps. It made it look all bumpy and rough, so they named it the rough ER. Alright, here, the bean-shaped structures that you see, these organelles are responsible for making ATP energy to keep the cell running. Those are the mitochondria. The outer layer that surrounds the cell and controls what goes in and out, this circle here is zooming in on this outer layer here. That is the cell membrane. So you can actually see the lipids and protein here. You can't see the carbohydrates, but just the lipids and the proteins. Alright, swinging around, all these little dots that we see here, they are organelles as well. Many of them are attached to the rough endoplasmic reticulum. Some are found floating out here in the cytoplasm, but we find the majority of them connected to the rough ER, and they are responsible for making proteins. Those are the ribosomes. Over here, we have the Golgi Apparatus. It's often referred to as the post office of the cell, and it's responsible for sorting, packaging, and shipping proteins within the cell and outside of the cell. Lysosomes are organelles that break down the waste in the cell, and these are cut open here, and you can see here whole ones. These churro-looking things are the centrioles. They're responsible for moving chromosomes around during cell division. Next, we have all of these little lines here that we see, and we see them around kind of the outside here. This isn't an accurate representation of this organelle, but this is the cytoskeleton. The cytoskeleton, if we had a true representation of the cytoskeleton, we wouldn't be able to see the other organelles very well, because it kind of spreads out throughout the entire cell to support the cell, prevent it from collapsing in on itself, and so it would kind of be like a spider web of the cytoskeleton spread out throughout the entire cell. So it would cover up all the other organelles. And then finally, the last organelle you're going to need to know is the smooth ER. So it's an extension here. It's still part of the endoplasmic reticulum, but because it does not have any ribosomes on it, it is the smooth ER. So for the same reason they named this the rough ER, they saw this under the microscope and said, hey, this part looks smooth, and named it the smooth endoplasmic reticulum. Alright. Now you're going to grab your plant cell, and what I want you to do, ignore these lines. So pretend these lines that are leading to stuff don't exist, and you're going to create your own lines, and you're going to identify as many organelles as you can based on how we labeled the animal cell. Because remember, the animal cell has just about every single thing that the plant cell has, with a few exceptions. Okay. So for example, to name the nucleus, just draw a line off and write nucleus. So you don't have to follow these lines that you see here. So just a line off and write nucleus. Try to label as many as you can without looking at your animal cell picture first. So as many as you can, and then grab and see what you forgot. Good way to study. Find out what you already know, so that way you know what to study. Okay. And then there's 3 additional things that plant cells have here that animal cells do not. The first is the chloroplast. And it has that because plants have to go through photosynthesis in order to trap the sun's energy and create glucose. They have a cell wall. Okay, so if you think about plants, they don't have skeletons. Most animals have either an endoskeleton like us, or they have an exoskeleton like insects do. Plants don't have that, so their cell wall helps support their body. And then the last thing is the vacuole, so the large central vacuole here that we see for storing water. If you think about plants, they can't go out and search for water, so plants will store water and a few other things in their central vacuole here. Alright, so that's it. Go ahead, finish labeling your plant cell, and have these already labeled and ready to go, and start studying the identification of organelles based on how they look. And then the last thing, once you're all done with this, you have a page similar to this. This one's a little bit different that you see here, but you're going to fill in your flashcards. So you could fill it in based on how the organelles look, or functions. So read the functions and see if you remember which organelle does what. So contains DNA and is the control center of the cell. So you'd write nucleus on this side, and you just go through each one. I would try to see if you can remember which organelle does what by reading the function and then writing it over here. Okay, so have these filled in as well by next class.